All right, there we go. Good evening, everyone. We're just going to wait a minute or two to make sure everyone can log in and hear before we kick off our program this evening. Thank you for joining us. Take a quick sip of water too.
You only get one.
That's it. No more for tonight. Thank you again, everyone, for attending. We're just going to wait another like 30 seconds and then we'll kick off our program. All right, let's get started. Good evening and welcome to the Milwaukee Public Library Book Chat. My name is Beth and I'm the adult librarian at the East Branch Library. My co-host tonight is Greg. He is a special collections and archives librarian at the Central Library. I think you can see him in his office right now if he's still on screen, otherwise he'll pop in later. Say hi, Greg. Tonight's conversation is being recorded and we will email you a recording link and program notes in a few days after the program. Feel free to use the chat box and interact with each other and to share your book recommendations, and make sure to use that Q&A box to submit your questions to our special guest this evening. As always, we invite you to sit back, relax, and enjoy the conversation. Before we begin, I'd like to do a land acknowledgement. We haven't done this in a long time on this program, and it is National Native American History Month. So I just want to acknowledge in Milwaukee that we are on the traditional Potawatomi, Ho-Chunk, and Menominee homeland along the southwest shores of Michigamme, North America's largest system of freshwater lakes, where the Milwaukee, Menominee, and Kinnickinnic rivers meet, and the people of Wisconsin's sovereign Anishinaabe, Ho-Chunk, Menominee, Oneida, and Mohegan nations remain present. All right, and then without further ado, I'd like to introduce our special guest author duo, Juneau Black. Juneau Black is the pen name of authors Jocelyn and Sharon Nagel. They share a love of excellent bookshops, fine cheeses, and a good murder in fictional form only. Though they are two separate people, if you ask either of them a question about their childhood, you're likely to get the same answer. This is a little unnerving for a number of reasons. I'm gonna have to toss that. Welcome and thank you so much for being here, Sharon and Jocelyn. How are you?
Hello.
Very well. Thank you for having us.
Thanks for having us.
Excellent. And then one of you still lives here in Milwaukee proper, and that's you, Sharon. And then Jocelyn, where have you gone to now?
I now live in Philadelphia, but I do spend the summers in Wisconsin, so restore my strength.
That sounds great. Are you a Gritty fan? Because I want to come to a
Everyone is a Gritty fan. Gritty speaks for the people.
That's like a big like travel goal of mine, is to come out and go to a Flyers game. So
let me know, because they're interesting.
I've heard going to a Philly sporting event is
it's an experience. I will not say any other adjectives.
Do they tailgate like we do here?
No one tailgates like Wisconsinites, to be honest. They try. They do their best. Yeah.
All right, that's all I need to know. We'll be prepared, but not if I come. So how did you two actually meet?
Oh, we worked together at Boswell Books about 150 years ago.
Awesome. Yeah, I was really excited to learn that about you too, because we love working with Boswell for a lot of our programs that we do here at the library. We always encourage everyone to go pick up your books there if you're not getting them from us, or both.
Support your local independent bookstores.
Absolutely. And did you both work in the same like section, or did you have like your own specialties at the store?
We didn't really have specialties. I did work in the children's section more often than some, but I think that's just because I was like more willing to brave the children. But Sharon and I had both worked at the Harry W. Schwartz bookshops when they existed. And then when the Schwartz books closed, Daniel Golden opened that location again as Boswell. So we both started working there. Sharon started before I did. And then we just really got along. And
Stayed long after you left.
you did. You stuck around. I was like, I got stuff to do. Bye.
Amazing. So what inspired you to collaborate on a book together? Jumping right into it.
Sharon,
Well,
why don't
one-
you take
yeah.
that story?
One very slow night, we were working in the children's department. And boss Daniel asked us to price these little finger puppets that were all woodland creatures. And so being us, while we were supposed to be working, we also gave all of the animals names and occupations. And we decided that they probably lived in a place called Shady Hollow. I don't know why, but that was it. And we're it was close to, it was fall, so we were like, maybe we can write a story and we'll do it during National Novel Writing Month and see what happens. And so that's what happened.
Yep, you weren't technically supposed to do this, at least that they discouraged it in early Nano days, but we totally split the duties of writing. And so Sharon would take half the days and we would just email the file back and forth. So when Sharon was done, she'd email it back to me. I would write the next day, email it back to her. So in this way, we kind of telephoned this document until we had an incredibly messy first draft at the end of November. So that is sort of where it started. And
Origin story.
yeah, and it took a while before like I sort of picked it up, and I had already started publishing romance on my own, just independently publishing. So I was getting some experience with putting a book together and working with editors and proofreaders and stuff. So I was like, well, this story could also do that. So I edited it to get it into shape and then gave it to a real editor. And then we just put it through that same process as my romance novels and independently published first Shady Hollow and then the next two books. And yeah, so we just sort of like had a very tiny fan base that was very kind to read our books in the beginning. And it's grown from
they
there.
were related to us.
Yes, yeah, most of them were our mothers, but
Everyone's got to start, somewhere, and that's
Yeah.
what your fan base is for. And they'll be like, I knew them when.
right, yeah.
Yeah, we're still kind of really excited when people that aren't related to us buy the books. It's nice to see that.
Yeah,
I can
and
imagine.
the covers that people buy today look like this, which is very different than the original covers, the indie published versions of those. Because a few years ago, one of the book reps at Boswell, who they visit and pitch the books for the next quarter or season or whatever, he had picked up a copy of Shady Hollow just to be very nice. And actually read it. He read it and liked it and asked us if we'd be okay if he sent it to an editor at Penguin. And we were like, yeah, that's fine.
Nothing will happen, but you go ahead.
Right. But then the editor that he sent it to also read it, which is amazing, and liked it, which is even more amazing. And then even more astonishingly offered us a deal to buy those books and republish them as under the Vintage Crime imprint. So.
Yeah, and I love these covers. I'm gonna have to look up and see if I can see the original one.
I will find a picture. They're very different, but I think also very beautiful. Oh, okay.
Yeah, we want to see, because I love that journey for you guys. It's so great.
Yeah, it's been an interesting process to like watch how it's done at a big traditional publishing house versus how we had done it, and which is not to say one is better than the other. It's just a very different process.
Different world, exactly. Yes.
Okay, let me know if you can see this.
Pull it back, I think.
Yeah.
There we go.
There we go.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, we had it for a second.
I know, it happens to me too. I feel like if you put your hand kind of like in front of it, it'll
Yeah.
That's okay.
I'll
find it and we'll send it in the follow-up.
Sorry about that.
Yeah.
No, it's all good.
Yeah, I had them. They were in our library collection, and when the new ones came out, I took them out of our collection. So
what was I going to ask you now? Oh, so NaNoWriMo, for those who might be here that don't know, it stands for National Novel Writing Month. So it happens in November. And as a library, we try to support that endeavor. I think it's a really cool and fun, well, I don't know if fun is the right word, but
It can be fun.
and one of those, like running a marathon, right? Like, is
Yeah.
that fun? A lot of people say yes.
I have
and
no
maybe
idea what
no.
that would be like.
No, me neither. I'm like, but it's a really big endeavor, and there is a website if you're interested in learning more. I think it's nanowrimo.org, and there's local groups. Are you a member of any of the groups, or do you just kind of do it on
Well,
your
it's kind of
own?
a community. So
Yeah.
you have an account on there, you can interact with everybody in the community locally or globally if you want.
Mhm.
Yeah, I'm in
Chat.
the
There's a lot of chat.
Wisconsin. Yeah, I'm in the Wisconsin group and the Philly group. And like also they just send general like boosts like from established writers. They'll write like a little thing that's like encouraging
Right, the
people
pep
who are-
talks.
Yeah.
The pep talks
yeah.
are really nice. They have
Yeah.
from actual writers and
Mhm.
That's awesome. And it's kind of like not accountability, but like helping like kind of push you along and check it
Yeah,
out.
it's-
And it's really neat.
Yeah.
I've poked around on the website quite a bit to like find things to print and post for people. And
Yeah.
if you're interested in more, we're hosting another write-in session at the East Branch on the 15th of November. So we'll be in person at our library. We'll have snacks. You can learn a little bit more. It's mostly just quiet writing time if that's what you would like to do. If you're not writing a book, you can still come in and do quiet work too. We don't
Easy
ask
time.
you.
Yeah.
We just ask you to turn your phone on silent. So that's pretty standard for the library. So that's super cool. And I love that you told me that you're writing your next book during this month. So how's that going?
It's going well. I mean, and for us, it's like we don't go in with a lot of pre-planning. We're pantsers as opposed to plotters for people who are up on terminology. So pantsers, as the name implies, right by the seat of their pants. And we kind of have a really rough idea, like, so this is set in a different town. So our characters are going to this place for entirely above board reasons, but of course a murder occurs. And then we sort of discover along, like as we write, we sort of figure things out with the murder and the plot. And we fix a lot of things later, but it's like we don't have a grand master plan. We're very much sort of discovering as we write. So that's part of our process. And again, with the switching days,
Okay.
what we'll do is often like, okay, like I've written something and I have an idea for what Sharon might do next. So I put a little paragraph and then she can pick that up or take it in a different direction. And then we just kind of keep exchanging with that, like leaving each other little notes and ideas for characters or a clue that someone could find. But yeah, like it's almost like a little game that we play, even though we don't know the rules.
But hey, it's working for you. And like,
It does seem
honestly,
to be
that sounds
working.
exciting to me. We're like, oh, it's my day and I'm going to open this up and I don't quite know what you were working on, but I'm going to find out. And that's really neat that you get to do that. And then Jocelyn, you said you write on your own under a couple different pen names and you write romance. And then Sharon, do you do any other writing or
No,
publishing?
I am a librarian at Whitefish Bay, so that takes up quite a bit of time. I have other writing. I did NaNoWriMo several years before I met Jocelyn, but I have a bunch of like very bad novels hidden away somewhere on an old computer. So I haven't done anything with them, but they're there.
That's awesome. For Jocelyn, how does your process kind of change or stay the same when you're doing your like individual work?
It's interesting because I don't like to write both types of genres at the same time. So right now we're just writing the mystery and it's a very different process, obviously, because I have a co-writer for that. When I write my romances, I tend to, I don't do it in that compressed timeline. Like we really try to write our mysteries quickly, partly because I think it's like a game theory thing where it's like, oh, the faster we do it, the faster like we think. My romances tend to be historical, so there's more research and more thinking like about little things in terms of the setting. So I can't move as fast. So it does take me longer, and I don't have the benefit of words magically appearing like from the day before because no one else is writing it. So I was like, oh crap, this is not writing itself. How rude. So yeah, it's a different process, and engages like a different part of my brain for each type of story.
That's super great. I love it. So can you give us like the quick like elevator pitch for Shady Hollow? Like how would you describe it to somebody if you were like, I need you to buy this?
We have a lot of like sort of high concept pitches. I think our favorite one right now is Animal Crossing meets Knives Out. So it's a woodland setting. There's no humans in this world. It's all animals, anthropomorphic animals. So imagine a cozy, lovely northern woodland town, except a body is discovered. And so our protagonist and detective is the town reporter. Her name is Vera Vixen. And when the local police officers, who are bears, do not seem to be doing real well on the investigation, she is inspired to take matters into her own paws and investigate the crime to figure out what really happened. So
she is a fox. You left that part.
she is a literal fox.
Yep. Foxy fox.
Oh, there she is.
Yep, she's super cute on the cover, and I love her so much.
And her best friend is a raven, Lenore Lee, who runs the town bookshop, which as booksellers, we are of course very into the bookshop. And we've just sort of populated the town with characters and places that we would like to know and would like to go and visit. So it's murder but gentle.
Yeah, it felt very cozy to me. Like I want to cuddle up with like my cardigan, and I have like a tea kettle on, and that's kind of what I did this weekend, and I very much enjoyed myself. And I love that there's a map in here.
The map is amazing. Yeah, and that was a development when it was republished by Vintage.
We didn't have a map.
The same artist who did the cover also did the map, and we're very happy with it.
I'm sure they're credited on here somewhere.
Pere de la Vega. Yeah, and he knows his stuff.
Great.
So
yeah, it's gorgeous. It just like I like this texture, feels nice to me. You know, I do a lot of early advanced reading copy reading for I review for a library journal, so it's mostly on my e-reader. I'm like, oh, I get to read like a paperback
real book
today. And like it was nice on my eyes, and it's just very nice. And I also like that you include the cast of characters. And do you do that for each subsequent book? Because I've only now read the first one.
Each of the Shady Hollow books does have that, and apparently that is actually like a very old-fashioned thing to do. I always read like old Agatha Christie's and other like old Earl Stanley Gardners and stuff, like just like books that paperbacks are crumbling apart because they were published in the 50s. And many of them did have that. So I just sort of assumed that that was a staple of the genre. But apparently it's actually kind of a throwback. So was very happy to learn that because it felt very natural to do that. And I think particularly in our world where the characters are not human, so a little bit of intro does help, I think.
Very much so. And I loved their names, and it was just a lot of fun. And, you know, has that tinge of darkness, like you said, like when you said Animal Crossing meets Knives Out, like I was like, I know exactly what you're saying. Like that speaks to me.
Yeah.
I play that game, and I've seen that movie a bunch of times, and it's really funny because people were talking about how Knives Out is like a November movie. So if you haven't watched it, I really recommend. Like it's a good November movie. So it's like
very much
the sweaters, but it's not Christmas, and it's not Halloween.
There's like it's like this gigantic house, and it's like there's little dark passageways and stuff. It's very it's a vibe.
And I don't think this is a spoiler to say I just love the description of the Raven's bookstore where would be able, it's like an old silo, and you said so she could fly up the silo to quick get to customers who are on the different levels, and I was like, oh, it's so cool, I want to go there. Or I want to see it on TV, you know, that would be really cool.
Oh, someday maybe.
I'm sending the vibes. It'd be great. One thing that did occur to me while I was reading is that one of the things I've noticed in cozies is like you don't, murder the animals in the books when there's people. So like how's that been kind of received since everyone in the book is an animal? And I noticed they don't really have pets. So I feel like you
Right. Yeah, the
circumvented
dynamic
that.
is a little bit different. People
Absolutely.
have, I think, with this particular series, you're either in or you're out. And I think that is something that's very clear when you pick it up and read the back, and it's, you realize that you're not reading a real world set thing. It's very much its own place. And if you accept that animals who hold down jobs and wear clothes and, do all these things, if you're on board with that, I think you're okay with everything else that happens.
Mhm.
And if you're not, like, you will already have gone to pick up a different book, as you should, because
Yeah, if you don't, if
Yeah.
you're not willing to get in that, to accept that, yeah, it's not for you.
it's not for you. And like, we don't have enough time to read books that we do
There
not
are
love.
plenty
So
of
just
other
go.
Like
Yeah.
for real, proud defendant of the do not finish the DNF. Like,
Oh,
if you're
yeah.
not clicking after like 50 pages, just it's time to go.
Yeah.
Yeah, there are
okay.
plenty of
No
other things to
judgment.
choose from. Yeah.
Mhm.
But this, I was like, yep, I'm going to read this. This will be great. And I'll have to keep going because I need to know what happens. And so does Vera continue on as like kind of your series like sleuth or?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, she's our amateur detective. And she continues to be a full-time journalist at the town's newspaper, which is the Shady Hollow Herald. And she in each new book, there's a new crime, and she is she gets support, which I think is also like a thing that we really wanted to have. It's not her against the world. Lenore is extremely helpful. Other townsfolk are very helpful. And her relationship with the police changes over time. So, that's, I don't want to give away too much, but yeah, there's a lot of effort put forward to reestablish the right order in the world, and like, solve the crime and make sure that justice is served.
Right, because Shady Hollow should be a safe place for everyone.
Right. Yeah. Unless you've done something terrible, in which case you might die.
And then justice will be done.
It really struck me how you handled that. Like, oh, this is a place where like there hasn't been a murder or like a crime like this in a generation, right? And then everybody going, it's a crime wave, and it's like, well, two murders a crime wave make. And then the run on the hardware store for the locks because nobody has a lock, all of a sudden everybody's feeling scared. And I was like this resonates like on a real world level, but in a more comfortable way, I think, in the setting. So I found that really like astute. So
yeah, we definitely have real world ideas filtering in Mirror Lake, which is the third book. There is a local election that happened, and it is not a coincidence that we wrote that in an election year and had thoughts, capital T thoughts.
I will not lie, I've kind of purposely scheduled this. Like I knew what I was doing, but I was like, oh, I would rather have like this fun chat with like fellow local people and not be sitting at home like
worrying about perhaps the outcome.
State of the world.
Yeah. So
everybody register to vote. Your vote's important. And
please vote, everyone.
East Ranch is a polling place. We did early voting all week, and it's been like an eye-opening experience just from watching it on the periphery even.
Yes.
So
in Central Time Zone, you have 35 minutes to get in line, and if you're in line, they have to let you vote.
Yes.
So watch this later.
Exactly. Actually, no, it's only 6:30, so you got hour.
Yeah, okay, good. Thank goodness.
Yes. Daylight savings time happened here, and it's been horrible.
It's awful. I don't approve.
No. Let's see. So let's bring it back to like the library here. So how do you said you do more research for like the romance stuff, Jocelyn, but I'm assuming like everybody's got to do some like research for all their writing. So how do you leverage like the library? What kind of weird stuff do you look up when you need a little bit more inspiration or info?
I will defer to the librarian for this answer.
I tend to research certain types of animals, like if we're trying to come up with a new character, even though Shady Hollow is not a real place, it's sort of like situationally in our heads, it's in a particular region. So I will look up to see whether this particular animal is one that might be there and like what its characteristics might be. Basically that's what I do, but most of it comes directly out of our, not our butts, but out of our, we make up a lot of stuff.
Yeah. But I mean, also it's like, I don't know, like, even if it doesn't, like, it's not direct research, like, oh, I have a question in this draft, I need to, go and find a book to answer it. It's a lot of it is like, we do a lot of reading and we use those resources before. And so it's like the ideas are swimming around in our minds because we've had that ability to go pick up this information. So I like to think a lot of it is like pre-search.
That's true, because we both like grew up reading Agatha Christie's and Perry Mason and Sherlock Holmes. And so we do have the same sort of mystery background, the traditional mysteries and the
Yeah, and I think it's not a surprise that like a major location in our books is the bookstore, and another location that it's not so much in the first book, but in later books is also the library, the Mirror Lake Library. So like it's in our heads as like these are places, as in like, and it's not again a surprise that Vera goes to these places when she has questions. Like there's a point in one of her cases, she's like, I need to research this family. And so she goes to the library and they're like, oh, hey, we have binders on all the founding families. Here we go. So we just absolutely, used that real world thing to, put it into the story of like watching her do the process of researching this family and learn about the past.
Yeah, we have places in town that we would like in our communities, like coffee shops and restaurants and things that are important to the community, like the bookstore and the library.
Yeah, absolutely.
It feels like a real place that we all wish we could just go visit. Hopefully not get murdered while we're there for like
yeah, that's the goal. But I mean, like, yeah, we wanted to write a place that we wanted to be because it's more fun that way. So yeah, we're just we want it to be an enjoyable experience when people are reading these.
I think you really like nailed it. So great job. Let's see. So do you have a favorite scene that you recall off the top of your head that you wrote together, or like just a fun memory from years past?
The longer it go, the more years that go by, the more trouble we have remembering which of us wrote what.
That's true.
That's cool. To merge together.
Yeah. I do. I mean, I remember like when we were naming our little puppets that were our inspiration.
That was fun.
Sharon's like playing with this little mouse puppet and she's like, if he had a name, it would be Howard Chitters. And I'm like, yeah. And he clearly an accountant. Like it's just
and he is, yeah.
So it's like it was just fun to do it. And I think because we had fun naming these animals and sort of figuring out like where might they live, and like we were absolutely abusing our positions as booksellers and just like playing with the toys in the store.
Hey, you know what? I will tell you, we used to have puppets at the Milwaukee Public Libraries. They had to go into storage during these times, but we would all play with them when they would come in fresh and new, because otherwise after that you're like, nope,
yeah, not so much
for me anymore. I'm like, they've seen some things. So I have been there, but I didn't get a book out of it, so that's amazing.
Not yet.
Yeah, you can still do this. Yeah.
You never know.
It's only November the 8th.
That's right. You can catch right up.
Yes.
Yeah, and just getting back to Nano too, like, the goal is to do 50,000 words in 30 days, which is, writing, if you wrote the same amount every day, it would be 1,667 words. But at the end of that, like, you're not done. So I think it's all sort of a false thing for people like, oh, I can't do it because it's too late to start. Or, oh, that sounds like so much. It's like, that's not even a fraction of the work you have to do. So don't be scared. Like, just go ahead and do it. Because there's so much work after that first draft to make it pretty. And
oh yeah.
It's a really nice way to jumpstart the writing process and getting used to writing every day,
Mhm.
even if you can only keep it going for a month, it's a really good way to get started on how it feels to write.
Yeah.
And from what I've like gotten from others that I know who do this, it's like, let it be messy, let it just, what is important is words on the page and progress
Yeah.
forward, and that's what after Nano is over is to address. And then it's better to have things than to have a blank page. So,
100%. Like you can't
December is
edit
for
something that doesn't exist.
So December is for editing, so you don't
Yeah.
even go back and
Yeah. Yeah. It's
go
just,
forward.
yeah. And it's like, just even if you wrote one word, like, okay, that's one more than 0. You're doing fine. Like, just keep going.
have a treat. Get
Yeah.
that
Yeah,
dopamine
that's great.
hit.
You deserve a treat.
I'm mostly motivated by cheese. So it's like every time I'm done with a writing session, it's like, oh, I better have some cheese and crackers. I'm fatigued.
That's
I
what
do
I told
a
my
lot of
spouse
fizzy
today. I was like,
water.
when I'm done with this, I want a cheese board. And that's like my plastic cutting board and like some cheese and crackers. Like really fancy on the week.
Yes, but now
day.
it's a charcuterie board. Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes I slice an apple up and whoo.
Ooh, that just like elevates it. Like we.
Yeah.
Yeah, I am motivated by fizzy water. So
Mm,
I go through a lot of fizzy water in my house.
it's part of your process.
Good.
Yeah.
I
It is part of
bought
my-
I bought a case of bubbly water and like individual like pretzels, cookies, snacks for the write-in sessions. And it's like, here you go, help yourselves. And then like
Yeah.
a little tray of cupcakes. Like when you're done and you're gonna go take one of those.
It's
Get it.
creative work does take energy, so we need
Yep,
to
you gotta
replenish
keep
self-care.
your eye on the prize.
Yeah.
Yes. And as a Sagittarius, I'm very rewards.
Oh, is that I'm also a Sagittarius. I didn't realize that's why I was so into rewards. I thought I just liked them.
Yeah, it's part of our culture. It's cool. And the
Oh, so I'm a Taurus, and we're just sort of like into treats in general.
you're into like the treats, but like the luxurious ones, you know, and
Yeah.
like yes, and like the
Fancy
finer
cheese.
things, the finer
Fancy
things.
cheese.
Mhm. I'm married to a Taurus, so I understand.
Okay.
Oh, I love it. So besides, you know, writing your books and stuff and working, do you have any other media or things that you enjoy like in your free time? Like what have you been watching lately or reading on your, you know, free time before Nano?
I am a big reader, even though I have my Netflix accounts and things like that. But one of the best books I read just recently, which it was really great for the Halloween season, is a book called The Witches of Moonshine Manor by Murray. And it is about a coven of octogenarian witches that have to work together to save their home from the developers who want to put up something horrible called Man World. It's so much fun. I highly recommend it. A little bit of magic and talking animals, and it's just really great fun.
That's
How about
awesome.
you, Jocelyn?
I have not been reading a ton right now, just partly because I've been writing. And apart from NBA, which I do enjoy watching a lot, we've been watching a show called Slow Horses, which is on Apple, and it is a spy genre, except the twist is that they're second-rate spies. So it's like MI5, but like for whatever reason, they got kicked out of MI5 because they like messed up. And so they're sent down to this place called Slow House, and which is why they're called Slow Horses. And like they're just like, we're not firing you, but you're gonna ride out your career and you're never gonna do anything. But of course, there's like something happens, they get embroiled in a conspiracy. So these spies who are not expected to achieve anything are suddenly like on the line to like save, you know, like a number of people. So it's really such an enjoyable like twist on the spy genre, and Gary Oldman is the leader of the spies. So it's just like wonderful.
That's amazing.
It's on Apple. Yeah. Oh, it's based on a series of books, and
Sharon?
I cannot remember the name of the author, unfortunately, but he has like 8 or 10 of them. Yeah.
Is it Mitch Heron? Something like
That
that?
sounds right. Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
So Slow Horses is the first book in that series, and then they're already
Okay.
like making the next book into the next series.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
That sounds
really fun.
great.
Yeah, that's
I've been watching Love is Blind, so I can't really speak to any of that. But like, that and reading, I do a lot of romance reviewing. So, and I just got on the audiobook like review list, so that's been
Oh, nice.
oh, I
fun.
love audiobooks.
So that's been helping me have a little bit more time for other things because I can do my listening when I'm driving or whatever.
It's a game
So,
changer. Yeah.
yeah. And it's like it's fun to hear the voices. You find favorite narrators. Are your books available on audio yet? I did not
They
check.
are,
Yeah.
yeah, and they are read by the very talented Cassandra Clare. So who is
No, Cassandra Campbell.
Campbell? Excuse me, I'm mixing her with a different one. But she
Yeah, she does a
is
great job.
She does all the voices of the animals. It's
Awesome.
great.
Yeah, I think this one would be really great as an audiobook because of all the characters, and if she's doing the voices, that I think I'm gonna have to listen to the next one.
They're fun.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right. I don't see any questions yet in our Q&A, so why don't we hop over to our book recommendations?
We do have one question.
Oh, we do? Okay.
Oh, do
I
we?
didn't
What
see
is
it.
it?
It says, well, of course, we love the book covers, and I did find the book covers. I'll show everyone after.
Oh, thank you.
Good
But
job,
it's
Sharon.
a
Good job.
two-part question. Who's your favorite character, and how did you come up with their name? And then how do you divide which parts to write for each of you?
Oh, okay. That's several questions packed into one. So thank you. We love the covers too. Who's our favorite characters? Sharon, do you want to go first?
Well, I like Vera, obviously. She's our main character, and I think we came up with we wanted a name that sort of sounded like she was a fox, which we got with Vixen, and then go with that because we're fond of alliteration. So that's where Vera came from, even though it is sort of an old-fashioned kind of name. You don't know.
But it's also like, it's an old-fashioned kind of story. Like we have this kind of like 30s Agatha Christie vibe going through. Like there's no computers, there's no cell phones in this story at all. So it's like there's no cars. Yeah.
Yeah, so Vera is my favorite. She's kind of a know-it-all, and she wants to be aware of what's going on. But I also like Joe. Joe is the moose that runs a coffee house. And yeah, I like Joe. I did some time before I became a librarian and a bookseller of working in the food industry. So I can relate to Joe.
Yes, Joe comes from life.
Joe's seen some stuff.
Yeah. I love Lenore Lee is the Raven who owns the town bookstore, which is called Nevermore Books. And she is just a collection of allusions to Edgar Allan Poe. So the name Lenore, the name Lee is from Annabelle Lee. Nevermore Books is obviously the poem. So she's very goth. Her humor is very dry and a little bit dark. And she works in a bookstore, so I love her. So, and yeah, I just really enjoy writing that character and reading her over again when, like we're going through and I was like, oh, right, she's awesome. That's great. But I also love Lefty, who is our raccoon, who's like, he's kind of like a petty criminal about town. He's like the nicest, like most like heart of gold kind of little criminal. And so like, even though he's like living on the shady side of Shady Hollow, he's very helpful to Vera a lot of the time. And he's just really funny. And I think a lot of people have mentioned, they're like, Team Lefty. So yeah, he's a fun one to write.
That's awesome. I have to say Lenore the Crow or the Raven is my favorite right now too, but we'll see how that goes. It's like,
she's fun, but we're always creating more, so it could change.
you got to. That's awesome.
Yeah,
and also like we need to keep the population up because like otherwise
people are dropping, people are dropping. But in Mirror Lake, the third book, we have a character that we had so much fun with, who is his name is Bradley Marvel.
Oh, yes.
And he's a wolf, and he is a very famous author, and he's sort of like a conglomeration of some of the pretentious authors that we used to have to deal with.
He's not based on any particular author, but no, yes,
most authors are lovely, don't get it, but
absolutely
events in Boswell, and we met a lot of authors. So he's a combination of many.
Yes, he's a what
Pretentious
not to
author
do.
behaviors that you
Yeah,
encounter.
yeah. But he was super fun to write.
Tap into that id part of your brain.
Oh yeah, yeah. Just like he's fun to write because we never have to meet him.
Yeah, we don't have
You
to
have to work with him.
Yeah. Exactly.
That's awesome. All right. I'm just trying to remember if we hit all the points in the question. Let me
Oh
just
yeah,
check.
did we get to all of that?
Oh, how do you divide up who writes which parts in each book? Is
Oh,
it just like the day by the
We-
alternating?
Yeah, we just sort of go back and forth. And if somebody has an idea that's out of sequence, we just write it and then we work it in later. So it's not formally divided. It's just sort of like back and forth.
Yeah, and I think we've discovered, and this is a lesson I need to learn over and over again, and I keep repeating the same mistakes when I write my romances, where I'm like, I don't need to write in order, I'll just have ideas and glue everything together later, and then it never works. So it does work best when we're like, this is what's happening next, let's write this next. So we do try to stick to that as much as we can. Sometimes you do have a really good idea and you're like, oh, okay, I just have to write this down. But
as much as I think it's boring to have an outline, I can appreciate how much it helps.
Mhm.
We have adjusted to that, and like having an outline so you know where you're going with the story instead of going, see what happens.
Yeah. And outline's a strong term. And I think that it scares a lot of writers because it feels so like restrictive. So what we do is more like what people would call story beats, where it's a little bit rougher and there's a lot more flexibility if things change or if we get a better idea. But it does give you something of a roadmap toward your next thing, or at least the end point, which is very helpful, particularly in a murder where, you really do need to lay these things down. Otherwise it makes no sense.
Pepper your clues. Yeah.
Yeah.
Potholes, with enormous potholes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm. What do you use to co-write now for software program or?
Oh, we are very lo-fi. We sent a Microsoft Word doc back and forth via email.
We still do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's really it.
I love
No
it.
fancy software, nothing. No, just Word.
Yeah.
I
At
hear
one
about
point,
some of those other things and I'm like, that's too
if it
much.
works for you, I mean, and like, again,
Yeah,
like
yeah,
all writers are different. If it
Yep.
works, great, whatever works for you. I have found it to be not necessary for our process. But again, it's very personal. So, and like some
Yep.
people like just want to have like a literal like paper notebook, and that's what works for them. So,
Yep. I
Yeah, and
remember
that's
writing
what
my thesis papers and like typing all my things and I print it out and I cut it up and then I
Yeah, it's whatever gets you to finished. That is the right.
That's
Yeah.
the cast of characters comes in handy for us because the more books that we write, the more we have to keep track of. So
Yeah.
the cast of characters being, oh, that's who that is, can be very helpful.
Definitely.
and bless those editors that like can copy people who can catch
Oh
like
yeah.
green on this page and now it's brown.
Yep.
And I'm like,
Copy
I don't
editors-
notice
Our
that.
copy editors are amazing.
Yeah, they
Their
are.
eye for detail is just astounding.
Yeah,
Something.
very wonderful part of the process and very necessary because we're like, I don't know.
And like as a reader, like I don't read like that. I'm like an emotional vibes person and I get swept up and then I go, oh, I have to think about this. And then I like to reread on audio often because like I read really fast and then it's like, woo, it like vibes only. I don't remember nothing, but I had a great time. And now I have to like read.
Right, details are not there.
Right.
Yes. Or some people, they just like absorb it and they can like regurgitate quotes and like,
Oh, those are amazing people. I'm just
I
like,
know,
it
and I'm
was
just like-
good.
Yeah, those people are under 25.
That's true. Yeah.
Those people are under 25, and when they get to be our age, they're just like, woohoo!
I'm just happy I'm reading. Right. Well, and as like a romance reader, it's so fun to be like, I'm looking for a story with like these specific like beats, and there will be somebody that will give you a very specific list.
Oh, they'll be like,
they have
here's a list
already.
of 3 with all of these tropes, and like you're
Yeah.
done. Yeah.
And I'm the type, like, I actually track all that now. I have a Goodreads. It's like 15 years old. It's got all my stuff. And like, I literally do not remember writing what I've written about things that I've read in the past. And I'm glad it's there. Cause I'm like, I did read that and I wrote like 6 paragraphs about it.
Astounding. Yeah.
So it's fun. I love it. All right, well, let's jump into our book recommendations. Greg, do you want to pull up the slides? So I asked oh,
There's the covers, by the way.
awesome.
Yeah, so
They are different.
well, okay, and they're different again because so the one Shady Hollow is the new American edition, which you can see that sort of like chalk style cover. The 2 other books, the Mirror Lake and the Yellow Shady Hollow, are the British editions. So they are also new, but also again like a very different design. And again, as like a book nerd, I love all this because like they just had a different idea of like what would sell in the UK is a very different thing. And you can kind of get a sense with these 2, if you put them side by side, they all form a streetscape. So the artist did all of them at once, all 3, and then like she kind of glued them together so that like the one building fits the other building.
That's really cool.
Actually, these 2 are the first and third, so they're actually missing the middle, unfortunately.
Oh, that's okay.
But yeah, it's like, but it like again, like just another cool thing that you can do when you have a publisher who can take the time to think about these things.
It's kind of like having your cake and eating it too, right? So you had your original cover and then you get another concept and then these are really awesome and people can kind of pick and choose what they like the best too.
Yeah, and who someday maybe there'll be like a movie version and when those covers will be there, so like fingers crossed.
Vibes out in the world. Awesome. Thanks for doing that, Greg. All right, so we asked Jocelyn and Sharon to recommend some books about writing this month. So go ahead, jump in. Whoever wants to talk about which one.
Sharon, do you want to start? Oh, Sharon, we lost your sound.
I don't know how that happened, but I was muted. So let's start over. I'm looking at Rochelle Melander's book, Write-a-thon. So Rochelle is a friend of everyone in Milwaukee. She's a writing coach. And she wrote this book about how to survive in National Novel Writing Month. So it is a great guide for that if you're just embarking on your NaNoWriMo thing. And what she says, which is very true, is writers write. So that's what you got to sit down and do. It's like you don't just talk about writing a novel, you do it. So I always remember that. Yes, writers write. Your turn.
Okay. I am going to take next Stephen King's On Writing, different cover than on the slide. Again, going back to that story about how they keep doing different colors. It is partly a memoir, as it says, but it's Stephen King just talking about his process and like things that he's learned over like, just a decades long, incredibly successful career. And I love it because he's very practical. And he's, it really comes down to write. Again, just like Rochelle, you have to write because if you don't write, there's nothing to fix. And it's, obviously more nuanced than that, but I love it because it's so straightforward. It's exactly what you expect to hear from Stephen King, which is, just don't be precious about it. Just get those words out. You can fix them later. And it's very encouraging. Like, I think he has such a good attitude about craft and how to create a good book. And he clearly knows his stuff. So it's definitely a little bit older, but I think all the information is still so valuable.
Yeah, and I have loved Stephen since I was a teenager, and I have always enjoyed his writing. And he makes a point of saying that you also have to read, and that's I think that's a mistake that a lot of people make, that they think they can write a book and they don't read and they don't know what else is out there. So that's an important part. But the thing that I love so much about Stephen King is that the man can tell a story, which is what I'm looking for in books. I mean, I can appreciate beautiful writing, and I do, but I need something to happen. And
Mhm.
he always delivers on that.
True, very true.
And that will segue into Benjamin Percy. Ben is also a big Stephen King fan, and it is reflected in his writing. He is a writer from Minnesota. At one point, he was teaching here in Milwaukee at Marquette, and he's also a friend of Boswell. So we've had him for many of his books, and this is a very useful writing guide on his process. And I would recommend that too.
I think I will take up Rochelle's Level Up book next. So again, we've already talked about Rochelle and how wonderful she is. And I think that this book is a really nice addition to the Write-a-thon book because it's not only writing, it's really for any kind of creative process. So it's applicable to a lot of different people and different types of work. And it's broken down into little tiny bite-sized, like she calls them quests. So I think it feels actionable. It doesn't feel like, oh, this is a great idea, but how do I do it? It's like, you do it like this, you just follow these things and do the thing. So I really appreciate how she has laid it out. And I think it's very helpful if you're feeling stuck. So you can just go, you dip in and there's, just pick a quest and like, they're sorted by the type of quest it is, or, the type of process that you're stuck with. Like this one is develop a writing habit, which Nano is another really good example of that. So yeah, it's just really wonderful, very inspiring, and also like just a very practical way. So like you feel like you're actually able to do something after reading it.
Okay, well, I think you're going to have to talk about Anne Lamott too, because I am the proud owner of this book, but I have not read it. So I'm going to carry on with that.
Well, again, word by word, another different cover version from the slide. So, and I think a testament also to like the fact that this book is so good, it's had multiple editions with different covers. She is such a lovely writer. If you have not read Anne Lamott, you really need to like pick one up because it's very rewarding. And there's a little bit of sort of memoir, and like she does talk about like how she got into writing and her process. And it's a little bit more philosophical than some of the other books that we've mentioned. And it's kind of like how to be a writer. Like if Stephen King is telling you how to do writing, she's really sort of like discussing like how you embody like a writer mindset in viewing the world and gathering information and sort of just absorbing everything you need to do in order to be able to create something out of that. And it's just like, I don't know, it's very gentle and wonderful. And I just love her writing so much. I think it's a very rewarding book for anyone who's, interested in writing or anything that's like a creative process. So, yeah.
Those are all great choices, and we have all those at the library, so we will include
Yay.
links for you all when we send the recording, so you can put those on hold if you want to check them out. Yeah, Rochelle is awesome. She works with us at the library quite a bit. She does writing workshops with kids and adults and all sorts of things, and we also did a book chat with her I think a year or two ago. So we can,
Has it been that
it's on our
long?
YouTube channel.
God.
I don't remember anymore like who we did what, like who we had on when
Time
anymore.
is meaningless at this point.
But yep, it's just like we did that, yay, and it was great. So awesome.
Yeah.
All right, I think Greg, you're next.
Yeah, okay. Two of my favorite authors that I just found out, well, Carlos Ruiz Zefron is dead, which is unfortunate. He's one of my favorite authors. They just
him.
posthumously published his short stories, some of which had
great.
not been published. So really fantastic. It's historical fiction, often set in Barcelona. He's a really great writer. Madeline Miller, I think you say this, Galatea. This has been republished again with a new cover. Actually, I think it was an ebook, so now it's actually in print. She is the master of taking Greek mythology and turning it into wonderful fiction. So a short one, I read this one a long time ago, but I'm already put it on hold at the library because I'm like, oh, I have to read the actual print version. I don't have to read it on the screen anymore. Yeah, so there's mine. Two of my all-time favorite authors randomly putting out new material.
Wonderful.
Great.
I love it. All right, so these are mine. I was just looking at the book Fancy Dresses Described. So this is a really cool like desk reference or something. If you are writing and maybe doing a historical romance, I don't know,
For
maybe.
example.
And it's just a great compendium of the way like historical dresses, fancy dresses are described. So kind of what they
That's
look
great.
like. There's a picture. It's really cool. I don't know. I just kind of geek out over stuff like that. And it was on our weeding cart. And I was like, oh, no. This we cannot
No.
go.
That's great.
I'm gonna prop it out and make sure it gets checked out and get some love. So
I am putting
time.
it on hold right now.
yes, please. I
That
love
is
it.
amazing.
It's
Yeah.
really good. And like I'm sure as you've been writing about gowns, like this comes in handy because sometimes like how many times can you talk about a corset? You know, so
Well,
you gotta
or
make it interesting.
knowing the right term, because they do change over time. So it's what is accurate in a
Mhm.
Victorian costume is not accurate for a Regency costume. So
Mhm.
absolutely, that's amazing and
And some of
wonderful.
those girlies get really grumpy when they're not. And I'm like,
Mhm.
again, me, like I don't know. Like
Yes,
I'm
but
just
some people, yeah.
to some people, and it's good to
Yeah.
do. It's good to do, and this
It's
is
gotta
my
be
two
accurate.
things exist, so it's really cool thing to have. And then I'm going to jump right to the writers market. This is a fantastic resource that Milwaukee Public Library and many libraries have a subscription to, so we get a new one every single year, and it's just a huge source of trusted publishers, agents, ways to like get your work out there if you're looking to get a foot in the door in more traditional publishing ways. So really great place to start. I put this in the hands of a lot of people who are asking for help on their publishing journey. It's expensive, so don't buy it because it changes all the time. So just
Yeah.
check it out from us.
Yeah, I've definitely used that in the past, and it is expensive. So definitely use your library's resources.
Please check it out. It's a chunky, it's a big one too. So
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
take it home and read it at home. I can't believe it's already in the 100th edition. So clearly it's got some
Very
good stuff in
useful.
there. Very
Mhm.
useful thing. And if you like it, there's also like the children's illustrators market, there's poetry, there's
It's
other things too.
magazines. Yeah.
Mhm.
Mhm.
So they're doing the work for you right up front, and it's a good place to jump off from. Okay, and then since we are on kind of a mystery kick, I wanted to, oops, can you go back to my other book? I just wanted to highlight this newer series that I just found out about. It is called, the first one is called Murder on the Red River by Marcy R. Rendon, and it's written by an Indigenous author, and there's 3 books, and it looks like we're getting all of them on order now, so I'll include the whole links for everybody. But it's set in the 1970s in the Red River Valley between North Dakota and Minnesota. And the protagonist is Renee Cash Blackbeard, and she's 19 years old, and she's kind of our amateur sleuth detective. And it just sounds really cool and interesting, and I am kind of really excited to check that one out. So I hope you all like it too. And I know our East patrons especially are really big mystery readers, like they just devour them. So it's not my wheelhouse, so I'm always looking for good recommendations to help people with. So even as I try to get them to read more smooching books.
You can read both.
It's like, it's okay.
In the same book. You can have mysteries and smooching.
Mhm.
Crime,
I'm
kissing, crime, kissing.
My little romance heart noticed what you're doing here. So I'm like, anyway, I won't say
It's a
anymore.
slow burn.
I love it. So yeah, those are my picks. And then before we just check for more questions, if you want to go to the next slide, Greg. All right, so coming up, this is a really awesome event. It's happening tomorrow. It's free and open to the public, but it's at the Anodyne Coffee Shop in Walker's Point. They just ask you to RSVP on the Facebook page if you'd like to go, but it's the annual Ex Fabula Presents Deaf Stories Project Story Slam. And if you've never watched this or attended, it's breathtakingly amazing. And everyone should go at some point. This is the 4th annual one. And it's an evening of true and personal stories told by deaf community members, and storytellers share stories on the theme this year of explosive encounters. So definitely check that out if you can, and we'll include the sign up link in the chat and in the email tomorrow. And then I just want to plug, we started a series of genre book clubs. So there's 2 more this year. We have a mystery, horror, and romance, and they'll both be going on into 2023, but this one's just wrapping up the year. So horror is at Bayview Library on Monday, November 28th, and they're reading and discussing The Only Good Indians. And then I'll be leading discussion of Camila Knows Best by Farah Heron on Tuesday, December 6th at the East Branch. And those are in person, so if you can make it, come on down. It's a good time.
Yay.
All right, do we have any other slides? Nope. I got the slides from the internet. All right, Greg, do we have any more questions?
Doesn't look like it.
Awesome. Well, I just want to say thank you so much, Sharon and Jocelyn, for being here tonight. This was awesome. I had a really good time. I hope you did too.
Yeah, thank you so much for letting us talk.
Yeah, absolutely. Good luck. What's the appropriate encouragement greeting for non-known writers? Do you have a special saying?
No, because we're all too busy writing to actually talk. So it's just keep going. Just keep
going. Get those words on the page. Have your snacks.
Yeah, grab your snacks.
30 days. It's only 30 days.
It's only 30 days. Well, I believe in you, and we're looking forward to what's up next. And then do you just want to remind everyone where they can follow along for what you do have coming up?
If you go to juneaublack.com, it has links to all of our books, as well as our social media that we are using, which is in practice Facebook and Instagram. So we do post there very regularly. Right now we're posting our nano word count updates every day, as well as other tidbits of news whenever we get them from our publisher. So yeah, that's juneaublack.com, and that's really kind of the easiest way to find out whatever else you might be interested in. And feel free to contact. We love talking to readers. So if you message us on Instagram, we do our very best to respond quickly and tell you what you need to know. So
awesome. Well, thank you so much. I just want to say thanks to all of our attendees, and we will email you in a couple of days with all this information, and we'll see you next time. Have a good night, everyone.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Good night.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye.